Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 188, Saturday, September the 9th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. Man oh man, another one of them days. More stories today to do than I can possibly get to in a 30-minute video, but we're going to certainly try to get as far as we can. Well, looking at the True Pundit in the last 24 hours, we now have official FBI spokesperson commenting on the situation with the Imran Awan investigation, as well as his wife Alvi. And so we have some new information, and it looks like to me that the hammer is getting ready to drop on one Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz and others. Let's take a look at the FBI official information here, brought to you by the True Pundit, their investigative division. The FBI is now saying that the Awans are finalizing their immunity deals with the DOJ in exchange for testimony on sitting members of Congress. Awans are finalizing their immunity deals with the Department of Justice in exchange for testimony on members of Congress, including sitting members of Congress. Notice in this statement, they're talking about not former members of Congress or people outside the Congress. They're talking about actual members of Congress currently serving. That would include Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz. We also notice that they don't use the word member. They use the word members, more than one sitting members of Congress. And I believe there's also probably some individuals who are not members of Congress who would be caught up in this as well. And I can imagine probably the person who probably would be most concerned here would be Donna Brazile. She was actually kind of the head of the DNC under Debbie Wasserman Schultz there at their headquarters. Debbie Wasserman Schultz being the overall Democratic Party chair, with Brazile being the one who actually was the day-to-day operations person down at their headquarters there. And so she has to be quite nervous at this point. Also, FBI sources say that the probe has shifted from bank fraud and is now focused on classified intelligence breaches in Congress. This is confirmed by FBI sources. The Awans are seeking a guarantee of no jail time. Alvi, the wife, will be returning from Pakistan for the September 14th hearings. Now, I have a question for Director Sherlock. FBI agents intercepted Alvi at Dulles International Airport, but the arresting agents stood down and allowed her to make her getaway. Why? Who gave the stand-down order to those FBI investigators who were there to make that arrest? Who was that, Director Sherlock? Those are two really good questions. Why the stand-down at Dulles International, and who gave that order? Had to come from pretty high up. And do you remember when Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz threatened the Capitol Police Chief with consequences, which she did on camera during a hearing? I'm sure we've all seen that video. Now, this information, it must be really explosive for the FBI, or in this case the Department of Justice, to offer immunity, complete immunity, on a matter, meaning crime, that involves the transfer of intelligence, bank fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, making false statements. My friends, these are heavy, heavy charges. You know, typically what you see in an investigation like this, you offer the small fish immunity, or you offer them something to get to the big fish. But in this case, if you're looking at the charges that the Awans are looking at, not just issues with the bank fraud and the lying under oath and all this, but the espionage aspect of this, the leaking of possibly selling classified information to foreign governments. I mean, these are serious charges. These are the type of charges you would identify with someone as being the big fish. The Awans in this case could easily be characterized as big fish, because these are crimes that would have them spending the rest of their lives, most of the rest of their lives, if not the rest of their lives, in prison. The bank fraud, the conspiracy charges, the making false statements, these are things, when you put them all together, and probably some other crimes that they can tack on as well, alone, these are, 20, 30-year prison sentences. But when you take into consideration the possible selling of classified information to foreign governments, this gets into the espionage part, and this would be lifetime. This would mean the Awans would be in prison for life. What would the Awans be able to give the DOJ, the FBI, that would make it worthwhile for them to give the Awans complete immunity with no jail time? For the FBI, the DOJ, to cut an immunity deal, giving them no jail time based on, these are not misdemeanors. These are high crimes. These are felonies, big time felonies. I mean, these are big fish type crimes. So this could only tell you that whatever the FBI and the DOJ are looking at from the Awans in terms of the Awans giving them the information and becoming witnesses against whoever they're targeting, it must be something extremely damaging. I mean, you don't offer immunity to people to get someone else on lesser charges, which means that the charges that they're looking at on whoever the Awans are giving up, those charges have to be even more serious than the charges leveled against the Awans, or the deal would not be offered. You don't let the big fish off the hook or offer immunity to the big fish to get a little fish. You offer the immunity to the little fish and get to the big fish. And if the little fish are the fish who are involved in espionage, bank fraud, conspiracy, making false statements, imagine what the charges are that they're looking at, and we get some interesting insight into what that may be when the FBI when the FBI suggests that there are classified intelligence breaches in Congress, and that we're not talking about just a member of Congress. We're talking about members of Congress, more than one. This tells us an awful lot, and whatever deal that they're going to cut, they have to have it done by the 14th, which is next week. We have about, 7 days. Because that's when their hearing is. And originally they were just talking about giving him lesser charges to the Awans for them cooperating. But now we're learning that we're talking about total immunity, no jail time at all. That means they have to be giving up the whole thing, whatever they know, everything they know, turning over all documents, everything they've got. The Awans are going to drop everything they've got. This tells us a great deal. We're getting very, very close to this coming to a head. And we can go back and look at the efforts that Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz made to protect the Awans. And then you look at the fact that he, Mr. Awan, put the computer in the office, which turns out now it looks like it may have been the laptop belonging to Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz. He leaves his ID, copies of his driver's license, letters to the Attorney General, the U.S. attorneys. Clearly, this tells me that Imran Awan obviously wanted them to know who he was, and he wanted them to know that he held information that was highly damaging to some very high-level people, that being specifically Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz and others. He wanted to be caught, essentially, is what we're saying here. Why is that? We can only assume at this point that Imran Awan would do something that desperate only if it were really serious, as in like his life was in danger, his wife flees the country, he attempts to close that final real estate deal that morning, and then as soon as he signs the papers to close that deal, he's headed to the airport. And then instead of getting a stand-down order this time, he gets arrested. His wife got the stand-down order. They let her go, which Director Sherlock needs to be talking to James Comey, and we'll get back to him later, about exactly who told those FBI agents at Dulles to stand down and let Alvey board that plane. So this tells me that Imran Awan would only take such a desperate move to essentially turn himself in, is essentially what he did when he set that laptop there with all his personal identification, letting them know, he's saying, hey, here is this piece of evidence that I have that's going to tell you all of this and prove all of this, and I am the person who put it here. I mean, this is essentially almost like a confession. It's the closest thing you can come to a confession. But he wanted to make sure he got this information to them. So it tells me that there was obviously some fear with Imran Awan. He was wanting to flee the country, drop all this stuff on the authorities, and then get out of the country. This tells me that he was hoping that they would take a look at it, that he would be able to execute this. He would be able to close that final real estate deal, get on the plane, get back to Pakistan, and join his wife, and then leave behind with all this information that he had left behind by leaving this laptop computer, which we can now assume does belong to Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz, and hoping that the evidence that he left behind would get the authorities to say, well, forget about this guy. He's out of the country. His wife's out of the country. They got away. But what we have here is the evidence of even larger crimes than what we were looking at with him. And we can allow intelligence to deal with Pakistani intelligence and the Pakistan government to try to find out if there was any breach of classified information, things like that. We'll allow the intelligence community to work on that, and we're going to focus, as the FBI, we're going to focus on these criminal charges dealing with whatever they were looking at in their investigation. And this has nothing to do with information some people are suggesting, well, yeah, he's probably, this has something to do with, cheating Bernie Sanders and what they were doing at the DNC. Well, this is, while it was wrong to do, and while many Bernie Sanders supporters may see this as being criminal, there was nothing criminal about what the DNC did, or what Wasserman Schultz or the Clintons or anyone else did regarding the cheating of Bernie Sanders. That's just simply what political parties do. The Metro Police, the FBI, wouldn't have any interest whatsoever in any information on this computer if all it was dealing with was the cheating of Bernie Sanders. This is much, much more than having anything to do with the cheating of Bernie Sanders. As we're learning from the FBI official statement, they are looking at members, including sitting members of Congress, and classified intelligence breaches. This is now where they've shifted their focus. They don't even, at this point, they seem to be able to have not much interest in the bank fraud or in the lying under oath, false statements, any of these other things. They're willing to look right past that because they believe that the issue with the members of Congress, sitting members of Congress, breaches of classified information are far more important to them. And the reason that they would offer immunity to Awan and his wife are because whatever they have, whatever they've given in terms of the documents, the laptop, and what they know personally, the information that they've given must be extremely explosive. And again, we're not just talking about Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz. We're obviously talking about others. Are they suggesting that Wasserman Schultz and other members of Congress were somehow involved in passing classified information through Awan to foreign governments for money? Because if that is what they're suggesting, this would be as big, if not bigger, than the Robert Hansen or Aldridge Ames cases. It will be bigger because this would involve people actually inside the Congress in a larger conspiracy. Hansen was operating on his own, as was what's his name that I just mentioned. Those two guys were operating on their own. They were running their own thing. This is actually much more of a conspiracy, a much larger cover-up, and we will have to see. So we know that when people get under pressure, as the Awans are now, and we now know that they are talking, they are cutting a deal, they're looking for complete immunity. So they obviously have something worth giving them full immunity for. And keep in mind, it is the Clintons' lawyers that are representing the Awans. If I were FBI Director Sherlock, I would be looking into exactly who is paying his legal bills to these high-dollar lawyers. This thing is getting ready to blow wide open here in the next week or so. We're going to find out a great deal because they're going to have to announce this immunity deal, what it entails. They're not going to just be able to say, yeah, we've given them complete immunity and not tell us why. This will probably be our first look at FBI Director Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray making a formal press conference outlining exactly where this investigation is. This will certainly warrant a major press conference by FBI Director Sherlock Wray. So we can expect this thing's going to blow wide open here in the next week to 10 days. And then the next question you have to ask is, would Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz or Donna Brazile or maybe some other members of Congress, are they the biggest fish involved? Or are there bigger fish? Does Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz have something she can offer in an immunity deal? Who could she give up? Well, possibly Donna Brazile is who she's probably going to try to blame it all on, the person under her. Certainly possible, but generally they're looking for a much bigger fish. Who is a bigger fish than Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz? It's hard to go much higher than the head of the DNC. But everything that we're learning now from this, from the official FBI spokesperson speaking to the investigative unit of the True Pundit, it looks as though they're saying that they're focusing on classified intel breaches and members of Congress. This thing's taking a really drastic turn from what we thought, where we thought, well, this just had to do with some local corruption or something. This is now taking on something much larger, and for the Department of Justice to say, oh, we don't even care about bank fraud charges. We don't even care about, lying under oath or anything else. Hey, these are major felonies. These are, spending most of the rest of their lives in prison. For them to offer immunity to allow the Awans to walk away from those charges, whatever they've got, it is bombshell. And we will see whether or not Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz, whether she takes the rap, falls on the sword, or whether she can cut a deal of her own, because that's the next step. Believe me, when they sit down with Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz and explain exactly what she's looking at, along with apparently other members of Congress, some of these people are going to start singing like a bird. They want to get an Awan immunity deal. They want to get an immunity deal like Awan got. And as you've noticed over the past several weeks, there is no one standing up to defend Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz. She's out there on her own, on a wire without a net. No one coming to her defense. No one coming to her aid. And Donna Brazile has been buried. She has gone away. She's gone into silent, run deep mode. She's not making public appearances. She's not all over the media where she normally is. You know, we haven't heard a peep out of Brazil. My guess is she knows that Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz is going to try to put some of the blame on her. And you also have to wonder, is there a Seth Rich angle somehow in all of this? That would be mighty explosive. And again, whatever it is that we're looking at has to be mighty explosive. So, this is probably the most important story breaking in the last 24 hours, and this could be a thread that you pull on and it unravels much, much more. And it has a hell of a lot more to do, in fact, nothing to do with DNC cheating Bernie Sanders. Nothing at all like that. This is something much, much bigger and much deeper. Next, well, Jeff Sessions, Attorney General Sessions, that overachiever, that eager beaver, the new Attorney General, same as the old Attorney General, has denied a congressional request by members of the Freedom Caucus, mostly Jim Jordan and others, to prosecute Obama-era official IRS official Lois Lerner. Thank you, Senator Sessions, AG Sessions, for nothing. As you know, there's overwhelming evidence that Lois Lerner, while head of the IRS, targeted Christians and conservatives. Overwhelming evidence. Then she comes in to testify, and she wants to plead the fifth, but before doing so, she makes a statement. Well, once you can't come in and plead the fifth and then make a statement to exonerate yourself. When you come in and plead the fifth, that's it. You don't get to make a defense of your own argument, but then not allow anyone to question you. It doesn't work that way. When you plead the fifth, you have to say nothing. But she came in and gave an opening statement, and then at the end of it said, and I'm going to plead the fifth. Well, you violated your right to plead the fifth once you have made your statement in your own defense. They're sitting there with her lawyers. Is exactly what she did. At that point, they should have immediately responded, and a couple members of Congress actually did on that committee say, hey, wait a minute, you just made a statement of your defense, and then you say that you want the fifth. Well, you can't do that. You violated your opportunity for the fifth by making that initial statement to your defense. At which point they should have said, sorry, but we're going to start asking questions, and you got to start answering them. But they let her slip off the hook. And now, Attorney Sessions looks like he doesn't want to pursue Lois Lerner, despite the overwhelming evidence. Remember, she's sitting back collecting a very nice pension with full benefits. She's guilty as hell. Literally an evil, evil woman on top of that, and a very nasty woman. She did a lot of harm to a lot of Christian conservative groups, and she's walking scot-free. Don't know what Attorney General Sessions is thinking. I mean, I saw his press conference. There's a lot of crime. I see crime. We're investigating crimes. I'm looking into crimes. Yes, you are. You're looking into crimes. There's a lot of crimes. You're investigating crimes, but you're doing nothing. Attorney General Sessions, the eager beaver, the overachieving Attorney General, is looking quite weak. I'm doing my best to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's not building a lot of confidence. He's a very mild, timid man with a nice little southern accent, which is fine. He's investigating crime. It's over here, it's over there, it's everywhere. Attorney General Sessions investigating crimes. Bullshit. Lawyer Ty Clevenger told Tucker Carlson of Fox News that the FBI is desperately trying to cover its tracks by not releasing former presidential candidate, the Rotten Reverend, by not releasing her emails. Again, The deep state is not a joke. We're not kidding. It is real. We're all watching it play out for ourselves right now. There's a lot of internal struggle and battles going on within the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the executive branch. You can rest assured that Mr. Clevenger, along with Mr. Sekulow, who's now one of the president's lawyers, who also heads up the ACLJ, as well as other groups, Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, and others, Larry Klayman, they have all got legal suits now filed against the FBI to get these emails, which they have a right to. We also know that FBI Director Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray and the eager beaver, the overachieving Attorney General Jeff Sessions, are being subpoenaed by the pitbull Trey Gowdy to come into Congress and explain why they're being cock-blocked, which again is also supposed to occur on the 14th. The 14th is going to be quite the day. You want to tune in for that video. Well, another Obama and Clinton foreign policy legacy blows up. Something we've been watching for a long time now. It's going to go the wrong way. Once again, thanks to the disastrous foreign policy of Obama and the rotten Reverend, we now have Myanmar. It's now in full-blown civil upheaval. Thank you very much, Reverend Rotten. Another country you destroyed, like Libya. You tried to destroy Syria. Absolutely unbelievable. Yemen, the whole 9 yards. The rotten Reverend, part of her legacy and the legacy of the failed Marxist, Barry Obama. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now, the rotten Reverend Clinton, in her worst-selling book, What Happened, is now blaming another group of people. She's now blaming the women of the Million Women March, saying, quote, they were out in the streets, but that passion didn't show up in the voters' booth. Well, here's the reason for that, rotten Reverend Clinton. Let me help you out with that. The feminist movement is not about uplifting other women. It is simply about bashing men. They're men haters. They're haters in general. They weren't out there to support you, rotten Reverend. They're out there to bash men, particularly white men. Donald Trump Jr. having a little bit of fun with his Twitter account. In 2014, the rotten Reverend told CNN that illegal immigrant children should be sent back to where they came from. Now, a few days ago, Reverend Rotten tweeted out that there's no time to waste. We've got to fight with everything we've got to defend DACA. Now, Trump Jr. retweeted a tweet from Jonathan Miller. Jonathan Miller's tweet, of course, was showing that interview with Christine Amanpour, where Hillary told Christine Amanpour that the illegal immigrant children should be sent back. So Miller tweeted out this interview of Hillary's quote, showing what the rotten Reverend said to Amanpour in 2014. Right along with her own tweet, which she's now saying we need to defend DACA. Caught her once again with her foot in her mouth, telling another lie, trying to flip her position. No one's buying it. No one's believing it. So Donald Trump Jr. having a little fun with his Twitter. Not only that, but now we have the crazy commie, Bernie Sanders, also chiming in, hitting back at Hillary, saying, quote, Does anybody really believe I stole her ideas? Because apparently, in her book, she blames crazy commie Bernie for stealing her ideas. Unbelievable. It appears that the rank-and-file Democrats are not happy about the Rotten Reverend's book. They're all hitting back hard. And, you know, when you look at the overall track record of the Rotten Reverend, she is the, in my opinion, she is the worst politician I've seen in my lifetime. The worst American politician I've seen in my lifetime. She has no instincts, and she has no soul. The Democrats are certainly hitting back now. She's going to pay a heavy price, and I expect her 15-city book tour is going to be a disaster. Well, the mad Maxine Waters, the California congressman with the IQ of a peanut, and that would be an inferior peanut, by the way, is now claiming that the alt-right wants to kill her. Well, to that I would have to say that the Mad Max Maxine Waters is already dead. Brain dead. She's a physical shell. She has a physical body, but she is brain dead. No need for the alt-right to kill her because she's already brain dead. She's as close to a peanut, a vegetable, as you can get. And I do believe that that young Latino is going to defeat her and primary her. I think even Democrats in her district realize that she's dumber than a doorknob. Who is really behind the dossier? We have the Senate Judiciary Committee looking at this, the House Oversight Committee. We have Mr. Gubarev's attorneys. They all want to know. Gowdy has subpoenaed, as I mentioned earlier, Director Sherlock Ray and the overachieving Attorney General, the eager beaver, Sessions. They all want to know who wrote the dossier, who funded the dossier, who put the dossier together, who leaked the dossier. Steele, his attorneys originally over in the UK lawsuit, were suggesting maybe it was Senator Magoo that did the leak to BuzzFeed. But now it appears that there's indications that GPS is giving that they leaked the dossier to BuzzFeed. It's time for Director Sherlock to question James Comey, the dishonorable James Comey. We know about all the crimes of the dishonorable James Comey. He made himself investigator, judge, and jury. He broke Department of Justice chain of command. He publicly confirmed the investigation, violating FBI principles. The dishonorable James Comey laid out the case for the Rotten Reverend's crimes, including mishandling classified information, including 22 emails that were confirmed, SAP, special access programs. Then he exonerated her. Then he rekindled the case 11 days before the election, only to then re-exonerate her a second time 24 hours before the election, before the vote. Comey then admitted under oath that he leaked confidential information that was classified for the purpose of causing grave harm to the President of the United States. Comey refused the emails from the NSA that he led us all to believe he was looking for. He may have been part of the cover-up of the tarmac meeting to shift the narrative and help cover that up. And it is very likely, from what we learned earlier in the week in a story in Gateway Pundit, that Comey and the FBI may have had a much larger role in the dossier, possibly paying for the dossier. Somebody is involved in the payment of that dossier, because once it was obvious that Trump was going to win, whoever that donor was stopped paying, but apparently someone continued to send money his way. It had to be either Comey directly or Mr. McCabe under him, using their agents in Rome or somewhere in the UK, or possibly, I believe, John Brennan, CIA. We have Mr. Gubarev, we have the Oversight Committee, we have the Judiciary Committee, all trying to get the answers to these questions, and they're pushing back pretty hard. We need to wait and see where this goes, but clearly we can see that things are definitely moving now in a completely different direction. The Russian narrative is dead in the water. Mueller's posse is grasping for anything they can now. And it looks like a lot of these things are coming to a head. You can be optimistic that we're moving in the right direction now. We're going to keep following these stories every day because, believe me, there are some major shoes about to drop. As Moore would say, drip, drip, drip. The raindrops are coming at a more rapid pace. They're much larger raindrops. The storm clouds are building on the horizon. And pretty soon, I do believe we are going to see some heads roll. TowerGate, day 188, Saturday, September 9th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. Y'all have a good day, and I'll be back tomorrow.